Well, it's 7 o'clock, so welcome to the Monday, November 8th, 2021 regular board meeting of the Beacon City School District. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, sorry, please also stand for a moment of silence for Doris H. Filkins, who taught for over 30 years at South Avenue Elementary School and was a pioneer in special education. Thank you. Kelly, roll call, please. Ms. Bettervid?
Here.
Ms. Flynn?
Here.
Mr. Galloway?
Here.
Ms. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Singh?
Here.
Mr. White?
Here.
Ms.
Here.
Stadler?
Here.
Here, thank you. Matt, will you review the fire exits?
Exits are in the back of the LGI.
Thank you. Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone signed up in the book? Ms. Bonneau? Okay. Hi, how are you?
I would love the minute warning, or the 30-second warning. I can't remember what I asked for.
Floor is on it for you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I came out tonight to discuss the vaccine clinics, which I have spoken on before, because it's very disturbing to me at this time that we're pushing an experimental medical procedure on our kids. I have a lot of information that I printed out from the links that were sent out to the community, to the parents, for their child to get vaccinated. And there definitely was not a plain language disclosure of the possible severe effects of the vaccine. I had to dig, and when I dug through the information, there was a lot of misinformation. There was a lot of, well, myocarditis might be a problem, but it's rare, and it is not rare. And I have talked with you about the Open VAERS data, which is readily available to you, which the CDC does make mention of in their disclaimer of the possible risks, but they ignore that it is rare. So I have printed out from Open VAERS some graphs, and in just the main numbers that stand out, this is for COVID-19 vaccine adverse events, and this is for all ages. There have been 18,078 deaths. There have been 88,910 hospitalizations, 95,954 urgent care visits, 133,973 doctor office visits, 7,844 cases of anaphylaxis, 10,721 cases of Bell's palsy, and it goes on. And I have printed out the various graphs, and this one specifically is about myocarditis and pericarditis, and the blue, we're not going to use that one. We're going to use this one. This is ages that it has affected with the myopericarditis. The highest age range is 18. And we think that this is okay to give to our kids. Nobody knows what this is going to do or what the long-term effects on these children are. And when I look into the clinical trials that were linked in the information sent through Dr. Neal, I looked for clinical trials. I printed out what I could find, completed trials for children, and none of them had any information about the Pfizer vaccine on them because it is very scant, it is very skimpy. And even the FDA panel that went on for 8 hours. There was many things brought up that were not okay, and it still passed unanimously because there's something wrong. There's something wrong. So the pharma companies have zero liability. That's why you don't hear of anybody bringing a case because there's vaccine court. And anything that goes into vaccine court doesn't come out of vaccine court. You can't hear about it, and that's how they get away with it. So people are getting hurt. There was recently a panel by Senator Johnson.
30 seconds.
Thank you. By vaccine injuries, it included a 12-year-old named Maddie DeGarry, who wanted to be a part of the Pfizer trial. She is now in a wheelchair and is getting no help. And so we must look into these adverse reactions. Thank you. Oh, and I have some things for you. I have these. Can I give them to you, or do you want me to leave them here?
You can give them to me.
Okay. And I also have a copy of the Nuremberg Code for everyone because this is human experimentation. Here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Or is there anyone on Zoom?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm on Zoom. I've never done this from Zoom before.
Can you state?
My name is,
Go ahead,
I'm sorry.
You go ahead, I'm listening.
Okay, my name is Lori Moline, and I have something I would like to say as well. And also about the same issue about us getting involved and encouraging people to vaccinate their young children. There's absolutely no evidence that these vaccines are safe for children. The evidence actually supports the fact that these shots come with a great deal of danger for children. The CDC's reporting system, as you just heard, VAERS shows a rise from around 13,000 deaths caused by the vaccine to now over 17,000, and that's just since they started vaccinating teens. 5 to 11-year-olds have a survival rate for COVID of more than 99.9%, and the children who have died have been very, very sick. So there's no reason, they don't get it, there's no reason to vaccinate them. All of the vaccines so far have proven to be very dangerous, which is supported by VAERS. The best studies of these VAERS systems estimate that only 1 to 10% of the actual injuries get reported. So take that 18,000 and multiply it by 10. One reason for this is that people don't even know that the VAERS system exists. Another reason is that it's a very difficult system to use. And also, doctors refuse lately to make entries for patients, which should scare the crap out of us. The studies done with children lack time and proper reporting, as children who have side effects that are not listed on the study reporting system have been dropped from the study, and their severe injuries not included in the studies. That young lady that the last woman mentioned is one of them. Eric Rubin, the editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine, who's also a member of Pfizer's committee to approve the vaccine for children, was quoted saying, "We're not going to get the data till we start vaccinating children." So what did he mean by that? He meant that Pfizer is using our little children as lab rats. Okay, they have no idea what's going to happen when they do this. Well, that's not true. They do have an idea. They know that a lot of children are going to die. I don't think as a school community, we should be involved in encouraging people to make lab rats out of their children and then do it on our own property. And that's all I have to say, and I thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment on Zoom? Okay, we're going to move on to our workshop. Tonight we have our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Student Services.
Can I just speak to the public comment for a second?
Of course.
I just want to say for the public record that we were able to we got the information today to offer a vaccination clinic for the Pfizer dosage. That's for 5 to 11-year-olds. In all my communications, this is purely and entirely optional for families to make use of. It's outside of the school day. We had 150 doses for tomorrow, for Tuesday night. Those doses got reserved on the website, I think, in under 30 minutes. We were able to talk to the person who's working with us to do, I guess another district didn't have the capacity to do it. So we were able to offer a second clinic Wednesday night, again, after school hours, again, completely optional for families. We only had 100 doses for Wednesday night. Those, I think, got reserved in about 45 minutes. My email inbox today was filled with people who were very thankful because the other ways to get this right now for people who want to get it for their kids is waiting at least a couple of weeks, at least with what I was looking at. So this has sped up the process for the families in our district who want to use this. Everything that I have seen for me personally is that they're safe and effective, but it's for every parent has the opportunity to do the research on their own and make the decision on their own. Vaccine decisions overall are made by the State Department of Health in terms of requirements for schools. Right now, this is optional. We wanted to offer it simply because when we were investigating people who want to get the vaccine for their 5 to 11-year-old, it looked like in New York, for whatever reason, that there's this wait of a couple of weeks, and we wanted to get it out to people earlier who wanted to make use of it. We don't probably have the ability to keep hosting these just because it's run pretty much on volunteer time for the most part. So, because I already have emails coming in tonight with people wanting us to have a third one for people who want to do this. So I just want to take that moment. I'm actually going to talk in the superintendent report tonight just about some other COVID things that we're working through right now, just to keep you all updated. But I just wanted to take an opportunity to speak to that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so for our workshop, we're going to hear from our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Student Services, Shaggy Rudicindo O'Neill. You've got the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I wanted just to kind of give you a little bit of an update, let you know kind of what I've been up to. So tonight's report is talking specifically about our professional learning day as well as next steps. Before I get to that, just very quickly, prior to our professional learning day, I have had an opportunity to go into all the elementary schools. And if you recall, one of the things that we were doing this year was we were focusing on streamlining our assessments and using one tool to assess our K through 5 students. So we are in the process of phasing out DRA. So I went into all the school buildings and I worked with K through 5 teachers on unpacking the Funtis and Pinnell benchmark assessments. Our teachers in grades 3 through 5 are familiar with the assessments. They've been doing it for a number of years. My purpose in including the teachers in 3 through 5 was that I wanted to make sure that everyone kind of had the same message, the same overview, the same kind of framework, so we were all on the same page. In addition to that, the teachers also received a balanced literacy guidance from me on how to kind of teach the 2-hour block, which will include not just readers and writers workshop, but also guided reading in grades K through 2, the implementation of Foundations to Fidelity. Okay. So our professional learning day goals were focusing on data. As you recall, when I first unpacked the 3-year plan, we have very specific goals around the goals of the mission of the district. And one of the things was we wanted to make sure that there was some sustainability. We thought that was very important. So right now we are in the process of introducing iReady to 3 of our 4 to all of our elementary schools as well as round out. But this year we had 3 elementary schools that were new to it. So we're doing a lot of professional learning around iReady. So the company has provided 2 professional development days in which they did 2-hour blocks teaching them that kind of hand over hand, training on iReady. But we also had an opportunity to work with our Dutchess County BOCES that does more of the instructional piece using iReady. So on that day, we looked at the data from iReady, and then teachers had an opportunity to work on their own and take the information they learned from their professional development time with Amy Carr from BOCES and actually implement some lessons that they could pull out of the data. The other part of our day was dedicated to looking at student needs. So as you know, we are coming off of a 2-year pandemic. So we do recognize that a lot of our students have suffered some learning loss, but also recognizing that we have some students that actually did well in our models last year. So we did have teachers kind of look at, based on iReady assessment, as well as their own assessments, running record, teacher observation. We like to look at various data points and take some time to actually identify some of the needs that they are witnessing within their classrooms. And then in their grade levels, actually kind of plan and create an action plan for how they were going to address those needs. There was an Excel sheet that was handed out to everyone, so it's a live document. So everyone was able to see across the district, every pre-K teacher, every K teacher, every ELA teacher was able to see what everyone was posting. That way they can share practices. There was also work done with the secondary level, 6 through 12, on unpacking our culturally responsive sustaining education framework. The reason we started with the secondary level, as we know, our students at that level they're older. They also have expressed some of the things that they are feeling. And as we know, it's very important that our teachers actually have the tools and the strategies in order to be able to navigate some of the dynamics of these things that are going on with our students. So we thought it was prudent to start at the secondary level versus the elementary, especially since the way the day was split. There wasn't time for me to get to the elementary, so those are going to be in the buildings that I'll be going in within the next couple of months and starting to unpack that with the elementaries. There was also an opportunity in the afternoon for people to sign up to certain electives. These are some of the offerings. We had some teachers who were able to sign up, and those were also through OU BOCES. Some of them were things that we also were able to offer to our teachers. If you notice, there are some things around equity as well. That's really important. We want to make sure that we're embedding as much equity into our curriculum this year. Grading for equity, we actually had many teachers that signed up for that. We are looking at grading. That's going to be slow. Grading is kind of a culture shift. But it's something that we have about 11 teachers who are able to take an opportunity to kind of look at that. It's based on a book by Joe Feldman. If you want to pick it up on Amazon.com, $29.99, I think it is. It's a good book that talks about kind of the culture of grading. So looking a little bit at what the culturally responsive framework PD kind of look like. So in my equity work, one of the things that is important is that equity work has to be done in phases. So the first thing that we always like to start with is an archaeological dig, a self-reflection piece, because we believe that you can't give what you don't have. And it's very difficult to support students if there's things that you don't know. And in terms of the cultural competency spectrum, we're all at different places. So even though I've done this equity work for many, many years, I don't consider myself the expert. I am also on my own journey. And one of the ways that I always like to kind of introduce the work is by showing a video called The Danger of the Single Story. I would love to say the name of the woman. She's a Nigerian writer, but I do not want to butcher her name. She has a beautiful name. And usually when I do this PD, I actually have an app that actually says her name because her name is gorgeous. And it actually, in that video, it's a 20-minute video. It's a TED Talk. You can see it on YouTube. And it talks about how oftentimes we are all guilty of creating single stories about people. And after they view the video, there's an opportunity to reflect on the single story. There's questions that go along with it. The first one is, have you ever had people think of a single story about you? And then have you ever done that to another group of people? Then after that, what we did was we went over the culturally responsive framework, the 4 principles of the framework, and specifically how that applies to teachers. If you look at the New York State Culturally Responsive Framework, it is broken up into all the different stakeholders. And the reason they do that is they want to make it very clear that equity is not something that's owned by one group, it's owned by everyone. So there is a unit in there on students, on families, on teachers, on building level administrators, district administrators, parents, and community, and how we all have to own this work. So we just did a little overview on that. The iReady data analysis, as I mentioned, we did have someone from Dutchess County BOCES come over and work with the teachers. It was a virtual professional learning. They had an opportunity to kind of go over their own data, which was nice. Being able to have the time is very difficult sometimes when you're teaching to have that opportunity to do that. They were broken up into small groups. They had an opportunity to target some skills. And one of the things that was encouraged was how you can engage families in iReady and how to celebrate successes and growth for each student. So one of the things, if you look at the data with iReady, it is specific to different domains within our standards, which really help you kind of pinpoint where students are doing well and where they need a little bit more support. And then again, our academic needs and student support. As I mentioned, there was an Excel sheet that was shared with everyone where they were able to identify and highlight areas they felt students needed some extra support, getting an opportunity to plan. The spreadsheet that was created, it was a little tedious because I kind of went in and took out all the standards and kind of pasted them onto the different grade levels so the teachers had the language there. The reason we wanted to make sure they were aligned to the standards is that next year there is the expectation that we are fully implemented the next generation standards. So it's important that we become very familiar and proficient in the language of the next generation standards. So we made sure that that was in the Excel sheet. And then next steps for the next couple of months. So the first 2 weeks of December, I am heading back to the elementary schools where we're going to be doing some more work around guided reading, mini lessons, what the reading workshop should look like. We will be hopefully doing a posting in January to begin our curriculum mapping in ELA, doing some after-school work. There will be, at the secondary level, we're going to continue our work around equity. I will be going to department meetings to continue the work. One of the things that I always learn is that sometimes it's better to do it in small groups versus very large groups. People feel a little bit more comfortable sharing their lived experiences when their groups are a little smaller versus when the groups are very, very large. In addition, Dr. Javon Hunter, there is a series that we are hosting, Beacon is hosting, in November 15 and 16. He is doing some culturally relevant work with different teams around Dutchess County. We're going to be hosting the event. We have 5 teachers that have signed up. And the goal of that is that we're going to have a district-wide equity team that's going to help me a little bit in the professional learning throughout the school year, hopefully throughout the next 3 years. And again, we're going to continue our work with Amy Carr in iReady specifically. We do have some days from BOCES that we're able to utilize where she's going to be able to come in and continue that work around instructional practices using iReady and using data. Questions?
Anybody have any questions for Sagi?
I hope I wasn't going too fast. I know.
No, it was a lot.
What was the book that you mentioned?
Grading for Equity by Joe Feldman.
And that's a workshop hosted through BOCES, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is a book study as well. So
I just want to take a minute to second the use of the TED Talk, The Danger of the Single Story. I've been in workshops before that's used it. Sagi did a great job with both those faculties using that as a kind of an entry point for a conversation because it allows you to really reflect on your own experience. And it was a good day. It allowed teachers time to collaborate. They worked in their buildings for the most part, which I think was needed right now at this point of the year, but there was a lot of sort of cross-district collaboration as well, using different tools. So it was a great check-in a couple months into the school year.
I want, in case, I don't know if anybody else has any questions. But when you were talking about evaluating that there were some students that did well, are you kind of drilling down to whether those were individual students that did well, or there was something about the strategy or approach that that seemed to work for kids? Like when you're saying you have this Excel spreadsheet that you're tracking that, I just wanted to understand better what that looks like.
The data that I'm referring to is the iReady data based on the benchmark. So that was basically gave us a baseline for our students. So when I was looking at the data, the cool thing is that I get to see the whole district. So I get to see trends across the district. There, obviously, teachers can't see the whole district. They can only see their individual classes because of privacy laws. But I'm able to see kind of trends. And one of the things that I've noticed is, that I think is worth celebrating, is that our students in early childhood are doing well in terms of phonological awareness and phonics and high-frequency words, which is what we're supposed to see, which shows that the Foundations program that we're using is working. Because in K2, they have to learn to read, so that in 3 through 8, they're reading to learn.
Right.
You know, of course, there are some gaps. And iReady is only one data point, so it's not the end-all or be-all. It kind of gives us a starting point because we're supposed to look at multiple entry points. So we'll look at iReady, we'll look at Fontes and Pinnell, we'll look at teachers as they do running records, as they do their own classroom assessments, teacher observations. So when we see students who look like, again, are performing well, I think that's important to not just celebrate, but also to make sure that we're giving them enrichment. Because one of the things is that we talk a lot about students that are struggling, and sometimes we forget those students who need to be pushed and need to be challenged. And they don't need to be pushed and challenged by being given more work. They need to be pushed and challenged by being given different work that's more to their interest.
Okay.
So
you're-
for example,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry?
No, I just wanted to understand, so the point is that you were saying that that for the K through 2 piece, that they're on,
That there's a good chunk of our students that,
who are
yeah,
on track.
that,
And so that then we don't have to keep thinking about closing the gap for them. They need to be thought about in an enrichment sense. So my question, I guess, was, do you think that's because either those gaps closed quickly once they got back into the classroom, or do you think that there was something about some element of remote learning that allowed learning to continue? I guess that's what I wasn't sure if that was the point of
well,
it.
the data that I'm looking at was data from the beginning of October.
Okay.
So again, it was a baseline, so it would be based on whatever happened last year. So if anything, that's a testament to the work that Beacon did last year in making sure that the students got quality education.
Okay.
So whether they were remote or hybrid, it was clear the teachers worked really hard. And I know it was difficult because in my previous district, there was a lot of crying. It was definitely difficult. But one of the things that iReady lets us do is next year, we're going to be able to look at multiple years. Because I know in my previous district, there was a lot of panicking that we weren't doing enough. But being able to look at the iReady data, I was able to show where I compared January of 2019 to January 2020, and being able to show them we're not that far off. You know, considering the kids are only here 2 days out of the week, you know, because I think sometimes we beat ourselves up a lot and we don't take enough time to celebrate. So I think, again, if anything, that baseline data gives us something to celebrate as a district, and then gives us kind of goals to be able to work to make sure that we're meeting our kids at different levels.
Okay. And then I interrupted you when you were going to explain an example of the enrichment piece.
So when I think about, again, enrichment is making sure that our students, because again, the antiquated way is to give kids more work, and no one wants that, but we have to give our students different work. So one of the things that I have been mentioning was about guided reading. And guided reading is a method of reading where you pull kids in small groups, and you do it at their instructional level. Well, those students that we know need enrichment, they don't need to be pulled every day. You give them something a little bit different, and you meet with them once a week, and you actually do book clubs with them, which are a little bit more engaging, is based on their interests while still meeting the standards. So that would be an example of something that you do with students who need enrichment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that some things will take time. Just for a point of reference, you mean like years, months, weeks?
It depends. It
Yeah.
depends. We know if you look at the work of Michael Folan, instructional change, educational change takes 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
So, and I have a 3-year plan, because y'all gave me a 3-year contract. So, so in my 3-year plan, I have different steps that I'm going to be taking. So So yeah, some things I think we're going to be able to get done by the end of this year, and then there's going to be other things that it's going to take multiple years to done. Again, when we look at, if I take the example of equity, that's never going to be done. That's something that we're just going to have to continue to keep do over and over again, because like I said, we're all in different places, and I think it's important to meet people where they are, give them the tools and the exposure that they need, so that I think we're more sensitive to each other's perspectives, and in a respectful way. And that sometimes takes a little time.
Okay. And then you mentioned, I mean, I like the example of giving them what they're interested in, right? Or, what you mentioned. I think that's great. There's so many interests, though. So, I mean, every child has their own personality.
Mhm.
At some point, though, will there be a problem of trying to cater to every single interest, or?
You
I
know,
mean, it may be a good problem, but I mean, like,
it
how would you
depends. If
address
we're talking about a book club, you rotate the titles of the books.
that? Okay.
So every child has an opportunity maybe to pick it. If we're talking about projects, usually teachers, I think, do a good job of making sure that it's projects that different kids can be involved in. Part of our curriculum mapping will be addressing that, looking at how we meet the needs of students who are struggling, how do we meet our kids who are kind of in the middle, I'd say in the middle, but who are at grade level, and then how do we enrich our students? So we have to sit down, we have to think about different plans. I know personally, my experience with enrichment has always been around project-based learning. I think our students who need enrichment really do really well with that, because there's a lot of autonomy there, there's a lot of choice there. It's a little bit more work for the teacher. So the teacher then has to figure out maybe doing one a year, starting, and that's what I mean by slow. You may want to start with one a year. And then later on in the next year, do two when you get comfortable with it. Because again, we need to make sure that we're supporting our teachers with their professional learning as well and meet them where they are. Because I don't want to overwhelm anyone. Because when people are overwhelmed, then they get anxious, and I don't want to make anyone anxious. But
And my last question is, I use the word traditionally kind of loosely a little bit, like kind of like what we've done before.
Mhm.
So your system will identify children that have not done well with the traditional way of teaching, I guess, and there's ways to address that.
it's not necessarily, it means that it's with the traditional way of teaching. I think one of the things that we always have to keep in mind is that students learn at their own pace. And that, I think it's important that that's honored. So just because the state has a threshold, and I'll give you an example, again, I'm going to go back to early childhood. A 7-year-old born in January and a 7-year-old born in November are two completely different students. And that 7-year-old born in November just needs sometimes more time. And for example, in terms of learning phonological awareness is being able to hear the sounds. Well, your ear actually has to have time to mature to actually hear the sounds. And in child development, they'll say, for example, Finland, they don't introduce print till 7 years old because child development says that that's when their ear is actually mature enough to actually hear the sounds. But we're in America, we do everything, 3 years, we introduce them to them at 4. But just because a child doesn't hear it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. They just may not be ready for it, and they just need a little bit more time, a little bit more exposure. So again, when we look at these assessments, it doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't gotten the right. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it means that what we're doing is not working for that particular child. We have to do something different. But sometimes it depends on, do they need more time? Do they need less work? Do things need to be modified? So.
And you could do that on the fly. I mean,
Well,
based on-
you have to be able to look at it, you have to be able to analyze it, you have to be able to see if other students have the same difficulty, because then you can group them together
Okay.
and kind of get more bang for your buck. That's the thing about guided reading, you're able to bring those kids together and be able to address it, at one time.
All right, thank you.
So this program, CRSE, this is from the State of New York Education Department, right? Is there some kind of timeframes on this that we should know about? I mean,
So they have not given a time frame. They have said that they want it to be done, with fidelity. So they expect the implementation to happen this year. It was developed in 2019, but when COVID hit, everything was kind of, because I've had it for almost 2 years. It's been on their website for a while, but this year, since we're all back in person, they really want districts to begin looking at this work, starting to talk about it, starting to do work, looking at their curriculum, looking at their professional learning, looking at access, looking at parent involvement. So there's a lot of different pieces to it. I'm really focusing on the curriculum piece of it. But it's not like we're supposed to be done like in 5 years, but they do want us to start now.
Any other questions for Sagi? Thank you so much.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. Did you have something else,
No,
Anthony?
just thanking them.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual and to review collective bargaining with the Beacon Teachers Association?
Anthony, so moved.
Second?
Anthony, second by Craig. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And in favor, passes 9-0. The board expects to return in about 40 minutes. Okay, welcome back.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for your patience.
I wish him well.
I got you.
Reviewing the agenda, there are a couple of changes. 11.04, instructional personnel, items D, E, J, and L. Are there any parent or school and student presentations? I don't see any here in the audience. Are there any on Zoom? I don't think so. So let's move on to the superintendent's report. Matt?
So I just wanted to provide just a couple of quick updates about some of the ways that we're working through this COVID era. One I spoke about earlier, so I won't go in depth about that, but we were able to offer 2 different vaccination clinics, one tomorrow, one on Wednesday here at the high school gym, focusing on the 5 to 11 Pfizer group. The Tuesday one, though, other people can get boosters if they so desire. So we'll be able to have about 250 students, it looks like, start getting the first round of the vaccinations on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then on I think it's November 30th and December 1st, they'll do the second round. So we were excited to be able to offer that. We're working with the same person who worked with us last spring when we did a clinic for 12 and up here in the district. So another thing that the state is now allowing via county health departments, and then it's up to districts, but it's called Test to Stay. And what Test to Stay means is if a student is a close contact of someone who has COVID-19 in the classroom or in the school, instead of having to automatically quarantine, Test to Stay allows that student to stay in school if they have for this particular one, if they have a rapid test done every single day during what would normally be the quarantine period. So we're excited to be able to offer this. We're not quite there yet. We're still trying to secure the number of rapid tests to allow this to happen. We have a very small number right now through the county. We put an order in through the county several weeks ago, so hopefully that shipment will come soon. And so in the coming days, we'll share with the community what our Test to Stay protocol will be here in the district, but it's one more measure that I think, keeps kids in school more. So obviously the parent of the child who's a close contact would need to consent to the testing. We're not going to test anyone without parent consent, but it's an option for folks for their child to stay in school. So our number of quarantine students has gone way down this year due to the changes in guidance, but even so, we still do have some number, even it's a small number, but a number of students who've had to quarantine this year. This could help cut that down even further. So we're excited to be able to offer that. And then we have some performances coming up, both in November and December in the theater. And there's nothing radical about how we're going to do it, but I just wanted to share what our theater protocols are going to be. And then we'll make sure the community knows what the protocols are and post them on our website. We're going to block off the first 2 rows of seats. That's to keep the performers safe. We're going to ask families or groups that come together to sit together with 6 feet of spacing between each family or group in the theater. Where obviously everyone in the audience has to remain masked for the performance. The theater will be a little bit less than 50% capacity, and so those are the main things. So it's going to be general admission seating for most of these events. So when a group comes, the ushers are going to be sort of trained or know what to do to try to get all the folks in the theater in a safe way. These protocols follow what other districts are doing in the area. I really commend our staff for putting this together and really trying to bring these performances back inside and back in the theater where they belong. These protocols will also cover when our theater's used on the weekend or something like that by an outside group. We'll ask that protocol be filed for everyone who uses it. And so those are our COVID updates for right now. Again, a lot of these efforts are sort of this return to normal, in the theater, or as close to that as we can, but also trying to keep kids in school more. So I just want to share some of the things we've been doing on the COVID front lately.
Thank you.
I have a question. For the performances, will the performers need to wear masks or not? If you know.
I think they have.
They're choosing to wear the clear masks that
Right.
they've done before.
Right.
Any other questions for Matt?
I do. How are we doing in terms of vaccinations for our staff?
We've been doing for folks who kind of opt out, they've been doing weekly testing for several weeks now. About a month ago, I don't track it by different positions, but we do track vaccination by every employee.
Yeah.
About a month ago, 73% of our employees were vaccinated, and it's increased to close to 80%. We haven't sort of done the math in the last few days, but every week we have a few more employees get vaccinated. So we're probably really close to 80%.
Thank you.
Are we still using the special filters for the air handlers and all that stuff?
Yeah, we have unit ventilators have MERV 13 filters, but we also have a portable HEPA filter in each classroom too.
Thank you.
And common spaces and things like that.
Okay, moving on to board comments and committee reports. Anthony White?
So the curriculum committee has not met since the last board meeting. We are due to meet on November 18th at 2:30 and 3:30. 3:30 at 3:30. So I have no updates besides the workshop that Sagi presented today. And I have no board comments.
Thank you. Kristen?
The facilities committee is going to meet on November 18th. And I just want to say thank you to Matt for working with the community partner to organize the vaccination clinics. I'm very excited to get my 9-year-old vaccinated tomorrow. It feels like the beginning of a return to normal since we'll have our whole family finally vaccinated and can take some, maybe some fewer precautions. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thanks. Craig?
Thank you. Also, Audit and Finance will be meeting on November 18th. I have been lately paying a lot more attention to the question of inflation. It's an almost missing term from our economic discussions for quite some time. But lately, we're seeing things like 5% numbers, which we haven't seen for a long time. I hope it's temporary. Some economists think it's just a bounce back from COVID. Others think it may have a more secular basis and be longer sustaining. We will need to keep an eye on this. Also, I saw a very interesting article in the Poughkeepsie Journal about the New York State Comptroller doing an audit of one of our other school districts in Dutchess County. It doesn't really matter which one. We have our own coming up that's underway. But I found something interesting in it, which was that they seemed to concentrate on bidding procedures and whether public bidding was properly carried out. So a word to the wise, we should probably be keeping a close eye on that to be sure we're doing what we should. Other than that, I hope to see that some high school performances. I just hope I can hear what's being said if everybody's wearing a mask. Anyway, carry on. Thank you.
Craig, do you want to have a quick conversation tomorrow or Wednesday about the agenda for audit? Because we've thrown around some ideas, but I think some of the things we want, they'll need a little time to put together.
Okay.
Maybe we can talk tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay. Anthony?
Good evening. I see the diversity committee is now Tuesday night by Zoom, and Dr. Landa, as I understand, is going to be like breakout sessions and stuff like that, right? So, I mean,
Tuesday's gonna be everybody together, and we're gonna share a schedule tomorrow of, we're actually gonna create 4 working groups. One of the things that I think I've noticed, or a lot of people have noticed, is we need to get more done. And so there's going to be a working group that meets either monthly or every other month on the code of conduct, just reviewing the changes that we made and seeing if we need to make any further changes. One will be on curriculum. One will be on inclusive education, especially for children with disabilities. Then the last one will be on hiring. Tomorrow night will be sort of more of a kickoff where we kind of talk about all of them, and then we'll have people can kind of select which group they want to be in, I guess. Like, that will be more interactive than Zoom, is our goal.
no,
More
thank you.
goal-oriented, too.
Thank you. No, I like that format. Thank you very much, Dr. Landau. And
Are you able to make that meeting?
tomorrow night, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, make that one. Yeah, no, I told the Liverpool people I won't be able to meet with them, so it's fine. Thank you for the workshop, Sagi, I appreciate it. I always like to pay attention to curriculum, and then, I also like to keep an eye on the STEM stuff too, so more to come. Thank you very much. And the report.
Thank you. John?
I just wanted to take the time out to thank Miss Johnson, but you guys know her as Mrs. Hadwin. She reached out to me and let me come in and speak to some of her seniors and also some of Mr. Newman's juniors this past Friday, and it was a really good time connecting with the kids and just talking about life and how I got to become a board member and just what they have coming for the future, because they are senior and juniors, and some big moments in their life are coming up. So it was just a really great time, and I just want to say thank you to them for letting me come in and speak with them.
Thank you. Jasmine?
I have nothing to say right now.
Thank you. Alyssa?
The next meeting of the policy committee will be Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Flora?
Just before this meeting, we had our public relations advocacy and legislative meeting, and we talked about some upcoming legislative meetings that are going to be happening. The first one is on December 13th. That is an online panel. It's being put on by Lower Hudson Education Coalition. And then the next one is the Nisba Legislative Lobby Day, which is actually happening in person this year. That's happening in February. So I'm going to put together a list of suggestions that we want to bring up to our legislators, and then we'll have a chance to discuss them as a board, so that we can make sure that we're coming to them with, our key concerns. The next meeting is December 13th of next month at 6 p.m. The Dutchess County School Board Association meeting had a really interesting presentation from the Weebatuck School District on the school-based health center that they are about to start implementing. The presentation was a really good sort of point by point of how they brought it into place. And they essentially started with their nurse, who seems like a really skilled, dynamic professional who was able to take on this initiative. And then they got buy-in from the board. They looked at examples elsewhere. They found a collaborator, which was basically an accredited system that follows specific protocols. They put together a verbal agreement. They got a grant for $100,000 because I think they reached out to Connecticut Health because it's sort of on that border, and they got a grant from them. And basically, they're repurposing a space that they already have. Some of the key reasons why this works for them is because they are like a relatively contained school district. But they also have a really, really broad need. About slightly more than half of their students are considered economically disadvantaged. And they are sort of starting with medical needs, and they're going to build in, really specific stuff like dental and vision and mental health care. But it was just really interesting to see how they're sort of building this from the ground up, that they identified this big need, that they got regional help, and that they're actually making it happen in a relatively short period of time. I mean, I think it's going to be up and running by, if I'm correct, before the school year ends. So I can send you all the presentation just because I thought it was really well done, and I didn't even know something like this existed until I heard all about this. So yeah, it was really great to hear about how that happened. And that's it for me.
What are some of the things that they're offering through it? I mean, is it?
Right now, it's very basic. I mean, it was kind of interesting because right now it's basic medical care. So a student will come in and they'll be sick, and instead of just sort of waiting in a waiting room to come home, they can be prescribed medicine. Like they can write a prescription, right? And the student, if they're sick, they can actually stay there. It is designed for them to be sick in the building because the parent may not be able to come right away. And I think as it expands, I don't fully understand. Like I think they're going to have to really, for something like dental work, like that's a very specialized area. So I think they're looking to sort of add equipment as they expand the program. But in terms of like basic medical care, essentially when students are there, they can get it. And for them, they said, it solves issues like there's no need for parents to transport their kids to a doctor. There's no, it mitigates the cost issue. And then follow-up. So if a student is having health issues, they're already at the school, and the medical professionals are getting that contact with them. It's so important. So it was amazing, and they made it seem so, like the path that they took was so clear. So it was really interesting.
New Hampshire's has a lot of community schools, and what they do is they do a lot of proactive healthcare services. So like if a kid has a study hall, they could schedule a dentist appointment and go to the dentist, which is housed like really close by. Or they could go to like their physician. and they have it even open after school's hours and stuff. So they probably tailored it after New Hampshire schools have a
Yeah.
lot of community schools that
Yeah.
do that service.
It's so great.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. I mean, I didn't know about the New Hampshire one, but I kind of remember seeing it in some documentary. I don't know if it was Paper Tigers or one of the other ones, but
Rockland BOCES is one of the leaders in New York State with community COSERs for their component districts. So they've been helping Ulster County with, they just started up a community COSER as well. But it's something that more districts are looking to utilize. So part of Rockland's COSER is assisting other BOCES in setting up a community COSER so schools can access it.
I mean, we have some community clinics in Beacon, so maybe there's potential for us as well.
It's harder when it's off-site, so a lot of it is like built into the school environment, into the classrooms and stuff, like classrooms that if the school population got down, taking that classroom and making it a dentist's office or making it a PA's office or something like that. Whereas if they have to go out to the community, it's not as accessible. So I know like when New Hampshire was looking at this, they did a lot of what can they do on the school grounds so students can access it during the day to get the proactive care that they need to help limit the reactive care that students will need and stuff. So it's all to try and promote the proactive services and the regular checkups and the regular dental appointments and the regular mental health needs that are needed. And to access that. I mean, and they extend the school building hours, so it's not just for the students, but the families could access it as well. So if there's a sibling that's 3, they could also use the same physician or dentist.
So is this something we could talk about more, or is it the facilities committee talks about more, or I mean, is this
I'd
something?
just like to see the presentation to start with.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're unique in that, well, we're different from Weewatuck in that we have, like our high school and our middle school, it's great because they're really close together.
Yeah.
But then we have 4 elementary schools that are kind of far apart, and then the transportation logistics are really difficult. But yes, I thought it was so interesting, and I think it's definitely worth looking at. So yeah, I'll share that.
I have a question. Who's paying for those services? How does that get funded?
You know, I don't know. I don't understand fully the funding, but I know, and you know, they got an initial grant of $100,000 to launch it. So I don't know if it just gets like if it gets rolled into like what you were talking about. I mean, is that what it would be part of, like the COSER? And
Typically what I'm familiar with, the way it starts is like if a county gets a grant, then they say, hey, we have free access to certain services, and we want to make them available to school districts. So what happens is if the county gets a grant and they earmark it for school services, but how can the school access that? And that's how Rockland BOCES got started, and that's how like Ulster County's getting started, because they received, like the schools receive federal funds. So the county received federal funds and they had to earmark it for like a social emotional learning, you know? Okay. So what can they do? What can the county do and make it accessible to the schools? So instead of partnering with like a private mental health agency, they may have received a subcontract from a county, but so the school doesn't have to contract out. They get it through the BOCES, because school districts don't have to contract out with BOCES. They can access that service easily to bring that into the schools. So I know that's what New York, like in our region, is starting to do. I know Rockland has, like, I haven't spoken to Rockland, but just looking at their website and, you know, talking to people that are familiar with it, that are a component district of Rockland, they're really spearheading it, and they're like going to be helping other BOCES get that piece.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. It was inspiring.
I thought you had to become a community school, like it's sort of a designated community school to do that, but it seems like maybe there's something more
There wasn't a mention
through
of that.
BOCES.
Yeah.
What is
I
a
look forward to
community
seeing
school?
Community schools saying it's all encompassed, like with the community supports and services. So like your medical needs could be met in that school community.
So it's not just school, it's more than school.
Correct. It's the community, like what services would be accessible in your community
Okay.
are accessible through the school. A lot of it is like, federal funding too. right? So like, I know New Hampshire allocates some of their federal funds for that community school, like Medicaid and so forth. So like, there are some that if you have private insurance, it's just accessing it through that school piece. So your insurance would still be, but you may not have to pay the copay if you're on that, economically disadvantaged. So if you have it, you would have to pay the copay, but it would be to that. You don't have to be forced to do the community school services, but it's accessible if you want to.
And is it just for around medical care? Because I feel like I've heard it defined as like there being continuing education
There
classes.
is, yeah.
and-
Yeah,
Right.
they have a whole component for post-secondary services, like if you wanted to get career-oriented and ready. Like I know that's Rockland Bosse's does that because
Yeah.
they have their CTLE, career tech program there. So like they access that and they offer services through that as well.
Thanks.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to let everyone know that I had a meeting, Matt was also on the call today with the mayor and the city administrator, Chris White, who's been the city administrator for only 9 months. He reminded me, it seems like he's been there longer. But it was a good meeting. We kind of updated each other on how the traffic is going since the road through the prison has been closed. And it seems like we agreed on both sides that there is an impact, but it hasn't been quite as bad as we feared, that people seem to be adjusting. But nonetheless, the city did pass a resolution asking for more time to study the traffic patterns and see what changes would be necessary to make it go smoother. They haven't heard anything back. We have not heard any response from the letter that we sent last week. And they said that they are requesting a meeting, which we would be invited to as well. So we'll keep you posted about that. I also,
I have a question about that. Part of that facility actually sits in town of Fishkill as well. I guess we haven't heard anything from them.
I have not. I mean, we should have more of a relationship with the Fishkill Town Council than we do. But yeah, I don't know if you were, I mean, Jonathan Jacobson's office was really instrumental in getting us as far as we've gotten in terms of having the bus pass through. Matt, did you have any contact with Fishkill over this, with the council?
No, just the city, Jacobson's office. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, because that street, I think, specifically in Fishkill, I think. So.
That's true.
It may start there, but the prison is 100% in Beacon, isn't it? So the actual, where the road is closed, I think is,
No, the Fishkill Correctional is partly in Beacon and partly in Fishkill.
is it?
Yeah. So the abandoned part that they're trying to get, the bike rodeo, that part. I think that's the Beacon part. I think the active part, I think, is the Fishkill part.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we should send our letter, just a copy of our letter to the council so they know.
Yeah.
Kelly, would you mind doing that? Thank you so much.
I like the bike rodeo answer.
What's going on with it?
Nothing is going on with it.
Nothing, yeah. I just started imagining a bike rodeo and
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty fun.
I'd go.
Yeah, they did mention that seems to be kind of dead in the water there. And that this road closure actually makes development there even more difficult than it already was. And so they're looking at alternatives for access to that parcel. We also talked about this 21st Century Learning Grant that Beacon, the school district is applying for because partnerships are really crucial to that grant. And so the city has been willing to partner with us over the after-school program, and they were enthusiastic about that. The other thing I asked them about was their implementation of electric vehicles in the city. I guess their latest addition to the police force is an electric detective's car. So they sound really excited about that. It seems to be working out well. We promised to meet again sooner than 9 months. I think 6 is probably realistic. Start trying to make the meeting in 3 months. So if there are other issues that you guys are interested in talking about, let me know. You know, we've talked about building this into a committee. I feel like, I don't know how realistic that is for them right now, but I feel like communication is good. I thanked them for their back-to-school safety month. You know, and I talked about some concerns that I brought up before about like the crossing between Memorial Park and Ron's, that we really need to do something to make that safer for our kids to cross, especially now that there's more traffic. They seemed receptive to that. Hopefully they'll do something about that sooner than later.
So, I mean, I will say that I'm still on the City Beacon Conservation Advisory Committee, and engaging the schools comes up. I think the survey, I think they reached out to you to put surveys out and then the school backpacks and stuff like that. But, you know, the ideas come up, and I think they just kind of fizzle out. But there is some either recycling initiatives or there are other things that I think while it may not reach the mayor's office, I mean, there's definitely stuff the city's working on that at the committee level there that I think the school district may be interested in.
Do you feel like they're curriculum related? Like would it, who?
Yeah, I have to look to see which ones. I'll let them know. It's just if it's curriculum related, I think that's what the board is interested in. So.
Yeah, I think in general, the partnership with the city it's really important, and we need to cultivate it as much as we can.
Yeah, the Land to Learn is already here, so that's good. The composting, though, is kind of one of those things that, does have a curriculum component to it. Stormwater management, that you can actually, if you collect the stormwater off the roofs, you can probably even feed the gardens, right? So, address two environmental issues at once, right? So, there's stuff like that, and there's actually curriculum on stormwater stuff as well,
Yeah. Well, do you feel like, Matt, maybe that's through the environmental clubs at the middle school and high school?
Yeah, potentially that.
Definitely great to.
But we were going to meet about that other thing. We can talk more.
Okay, yeah.
You want to add to your agenda?
Oh, I got lots of stuff I want to.
Okay.
I just want to also say, Chris White and I have a good relationship. I know we don't have these more formal meetings all the time, and Chris and I talk quite a bit. And also one other aspect of the city, we had a lot of large crowd events this fall. We had really great weather this fall. We had no events for the last year and a half, really, and so football games, soccer games, like we had a lot of people coming, especially football, and Beacon Police Department offered a lot of support through the whole fall with just helping us manage everything with the tragedy in September that happened in Arlington with the death of a student. It heightened a lot of people's feelings around safety, and along with our own security team and our administrators, BPD was also there just to provide support, and really were very helpful in pulling off very safe, positive crowds at our events. So I just want to tip my cap to that. And then Meredith mentioned we are partnering with the City of Beacon on these 21st Century Learning Grants. We'll hopefully get this grant submitted by the end of the month. But essentially what we want to do is increase the after-school program that Beacon Rec currently runs and expand it for low-income families. Create a program at the middle school that has academics but also an arts focus. And then a program at the high school that has an academic focus and an internship-based focus. And we've talked to the city about some of the high school students in that 21st Century Center being interns in the city of Beacon in different departments and stuff. So I think our hope is we have another strong partnership with them through that, if we get the grant.
And about the crosswalk between Beacon High School and Meadow Ridge Complex, did you discuss that?
No, but I have a follow-up email to Chris that I've already drafted, and I will put it in there.
Yep.
We did talk crosswalks in general and just like how to make them. He had a great suggestion of just, I think, a relatively affordable thing to do is create those blinking lights that, are activated. You activate them to let cars know you're coming, and especially at Ron's, I think it'd be good. But the one you're talking about, we just need the lines painted at a minimum.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I will follow up on that. Okay, we don't have any new business, so moving on to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more efficient use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board members would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Can I have a motion to approve 11.01 through 11.08?
Anthony, so moved.
Is there a
Second.
Second by Flora. Comments or questions?
Thank you for the donation, 11.07.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Anthony, so moved.
Second.
Second by Alyssa.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Thank you. Have a good night.